Hi da dum dai ai dai dun dai ai 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 bye bye. Hi da dum dai ai 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 ai. Hi da dum dai ai 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 ai. Ayarandai andai ambai. Hi ay ay ay. Ayarandai andai ababai. Ay 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 arara. Ayarandai. Ay ay ababai. Ay 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 ay. Ay da dum dai am dai ya ba bai. Ay, 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 bye bye. Ay, da, dun, ay, dun, ay, ya, bye bye. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, da, dun, ay, dum, da, yum, bum, ba, da, ba, bye. Ha, ba, bye, ya, dun, ay, dum, da, yum, da, ya, ba, bye, ay. Ay ay da ran na na ran na na ran na yam bam ba 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 ay ha da da ya ran na na ran na yam ba 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 ay ay ya ran na yan na ya ba ba ay ya ba ba ay da ran na yan na ya ba ba ay 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 ay. Yai. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are participating from. That nigun is called the Klimavitcher nigun from the Klimavitcher Hasidic dynasty. And I always find it a nigun like that to be a rich entry into this moment that we are going to share together. And we are sharing it together. We might be spread out across really wide geographies, but through the power of this technology and the even greater power of the mind of the spirit and the spirit of the mind, we will be together for the next 23 minutes. And as Mark said, this is a gift to the self, not a selfish gift to the self, but an earned gift to the self, to carve out some time where, to quote one of my dear teachers in meditation, there will be nothing to see, nothing to want, and nothing to do. Just to retreat and return to self with breathing and holding an intentional position, and perhaps with a kernel of an idea that can illuminate and guide our meditation. And here's the idea. With the apology for the redundancy for those who have meditated with me before during the Omer, my personal meditations and the ones that I lead in these 7 weeks between Pesach and Shavuot are almost always inspired by the specific day of the Omer in which we find ourselves, which is a subcategory of the week. To make a long story short, the great Kabbalists decided to take the 49 days of the Omer, the 7 weeks of 7 days, and graph it or graph onto it the notion of the 7 sfirot, the emanations in the Kabbalah of God's presence in the world. It's a play on words because sfira meant the kind of circular emanation of God, and sfira is also the Hebrew word for the counting of the Omer. And whenever we speak about God's emanations, God's aspect in the world, we are speaking about 2 things simultaneously: that aspect of God that we wish, that we hope to experience, to touch, to taste in the world, and also to bring out in ourselves. There's almost nothing that we say about God aspirationally in the Jewish people's collective vernacular that does not also invite us to exude that in our own ways of being. As Mark mentioned, we are in the 6th week of the Omer, which means we are in the week of Yesod. The word Yesod in standard Hebrew means foundation. In Kabbalistic Hebrew, it generally means bonding. The primary image of Yesod in most Kabbalistic texts is the wordless bonding that takes place between a child who's nursing with his mother or her mother. There's no attachment. more intimate, more real, more immediate than that. No words have to be expressed. There is almost a unity of two different creatures. So Yesod is the aspect of God that projects bonding with the world and bonding with us. And it also reflects the bonds that we try to craft and curate in our lives. But we're not just in the week of Yesod, we're in the sixth day, we're in the second day of that week, which means we are in Gvura Shebiyasod. Gvura in standard Hebrew means strength, heroism. In the Kabbalah, it means restraint. It means overpowering our urges. It means holding back. So what is Gvura Shebiyasod? I want to offer two paradigms, and then we'll go into the meditation. One paradigm of Gvura Shebiyasod is thinking about the aspects of our relationships in which there is too much of us. That requires us to hold back, pull back, make more space for the other, to yield our needs and wants to the greater reality of the bond we're trying to create. And that is hard all the time, whether a romantic relationship, a marital relationship, a friend relationship, a partner relationship. It is very hard to put the yesod, the bonding, higher than what we want and need in that moment. That's what we're supposed to be trying for in Gvura B'Yesod, or one of them. Or are there other things extrinsic to our bonding and bonded relationships from which we need to hold back because they're intruding upon our Yesod? They're getting in the way. Are there other attentions that we need to give less of? Other commitments, other people that we need to have some gvura about so that we can be more invested in Yesod? Many other possibilities, but those are the two that come to mind, and those will be the ones I want to bring you into now, not in a didactic mode, but in a meditative mode. So if you have not already, I invite you to close your eyes and begin again to feel the wonder, and it is wonder, what it means to hold your body lovingly, with gratitude for every fiber in your body, and to close your eyes not in order to go to sleep, but rather in order to be more awake. We are aiming in every meditation for poised rest. We're aiming to breathe your body into a tranquility, a serenity, a wellness, but that is very alert, very focused, very much awake and alive. If you haven't already, begin to slow down your breathing and make this automatic action intentional. Make it suffused and overflowing with kavanah. Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And delighting in every physical and perhaps even metaphysical aspect of that simple act that you do thousands of times a day. The feel of the air coming through your nostrils. Is it colder than you had expected? Is it warmer? Expansion of your lungs as you gulp it down. See if you can even animate in your body and in your mind the image of your lungs transferring the oxygen to the blood and reaching every part of your body that is so thirsty for it. And as you breathe out, which is a gift to the atmosphere that needs your carbon dioxide, try with each out-breath to extrude all of the heaviness, the stress, the yuck and the muck that we carry with us So each breath is serving yourself and serving the world, and is productive and is done with intent. Yesod, our bonding, our loftiest, most sacred bonding with those we love, with a God we are always trying to locate, with our very people. This is a week of bonding, a week of aiming for even miniature moments with our various types of partners, for a facsimile of that nursing child to mother closeness, tenderness, indivisibility. Yesod. And today is Gvura Shebiyasod, where we use our strength to hold back, to pull back, to resist the urge to satisfy every temporary need in order that our bonds be stronger. Think of a bond that needs less of your needs present, as hard as that is. Think of a bond that will be strengthened if you exhibit some sacred gvura, the heroism of self-restraint. How much tzimtzum, some self-minimization, can you endure and tolerate and practice so that your yesod, your bond, will be bigger and more beautiful and more sacred. Gvura should be yesod. Be a hero towards all your relationships. Gvura should be yesod. Deepen your bond with the divine by holding back on some of what you want to do. Gvura should be yesod. Gvura should be yesod. Ay, 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 babam. Ya, da, dum, day, day, dum, day. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, da, dum, day, dum, day, dum, day. Ay, 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 babam. Ay, da, dum, day, dum, day, dum, day. Ay, 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 ay. Yararam, dayam, dayababai. Ay, 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 ababai. Ayabam, bayram, dayababai. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, daram, dayam, dayababai. Ay, 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 ababai. Ay, da, dum, da, yum, da, ya, ba, bye. Ay, 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 yo. Ay, ay, da, dum, da, dum, da, dum, da, yum, da, ya, ba, bye, da. Ay, ay, da, dum, da, dum, da, dum, da. Ay, ay, ya, ba, bye, yo. Ay, ay, da, dum, da, dum, da, dum, da. Ay, ay, ya, ba, ba, ay, ay, ya, dum, day, dum, day, dum, day. Ay, ay, ya, ba, ba, ay, ay, da, dum, day, dum, day, ya, ba, ba, ay, ya, ya, ba, ba, ay, da, dum, day, dum, day, ya, ba, ba, ay, 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 ay. Ay, da, dan, day, and, day, ya, ba, ba. Ay, 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 ya, ba, ba. Ay, da, dan, ay, 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 ya, ba, ba. Ay, 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 ya, yo. Share a blessing that we can recite together. I usually do to end my meditations. Let me find it. This comes from the Buddhist tradition. One day I can do a class on these very words, particularly the last paragraph, which some people struggle with or question why we're asking to be free from attachment to loved ones. The focus is on burdening attachment to loved ones. We should be not free from attachment to loved ones, but we should be free from the attachment to loved ones that become overly burdensome. And this is a prayer that we say, or a blessing we say 3 times to close our meditative experience. May we in all blessings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. And may we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. And I say to you all, shalom, and an early Shabbat shalom. Namaste.
Much gratitude to you, Rabbi Adam Kligfield. Beautiful guidance and teaching today. And friends, as always, we seal that practice, offering an opportunity for those who are in mourning, observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, to do so. Thanks to Rachel for sharing the words of the Kaddish on the screen. You can put the name or names of those you're honoring in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. And if you are reciting Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit And you can unmute at this time. Yitkadal, Yikadash, Shemei Rabba, Yamad, Yirach, Te, V'Yamlich Malchutei, V'Chayaton, V'Yomei V'Yeh, T'chol Beit Yisrael, V'Agala, V'Zman, Karim, V'Yimru,
Amen.
Amen.
Baruch, Amen, Baruch, Shabbat, Ar, Ela mikol yirchata ushbechata amiram ba'alma aish amarabam im amalinu
Say
shalom
shalom, b'mirmah, say
shalom
shalom. Reinu v'yalko
Yisrael
Yisrael, yalko Yosef Tavel,
Tevel
v'yimer. Amen.
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 Israel, Fa'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, V'imru, Amen.
Amen. Amen. Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. If you're leaving us now, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. We're delighted Rabbi Shefa Gold will lead us in practice to sit into Shabbat and chant into Shabbat tomorrow at our usual time, 12:30 Eastern. So we hope you'll join us then. If you're leaving us now, you are welcome to stay on, of course, as always, just to continue to sit in your practice. To use this time, the container of this community to do so, or join us for some conversation with Rabbi Adam Kligfield about today's beautiful teaching. And you can just share reflections in the chat if you like. If you have a question you'd like to raise, you can please preface it by writing question in all caps. And I'll try to keep an eye on that. Adam, thanks so much, as always. Beautiful. I always want to avoid getting too heady in these post meditation conversations. And it's sometimes can be difficult to do when we get into the Omer and get into the Kabbalistic weeds. What does that spheron mean, and how does it intersect with that spheron? It's for a lot of people can be confusing, abstract, whatever. So I want to try to simplify this and bring it into the practice, and first I want to just make sure I understood, reflect back to you what I got as the teaching, at least as I heard it, and tried to bring it into my practice, which was this. This is the week of Yesod. You were kind of translating that in Kabbalistic terms as bonding, which I like then retranslate into my head as connection, right? Connection to something beyond myself, with family, friends, community, nature, the world, the universe. And Yesod, which, as you pointed out, means strength or might, but in the Kabbalistic rubric can mean restraint. So, and where it picks up for me is that in meditation practice, part of the reason why I feel like I do it is because I am trapped in the prison of self and ego most of my waking hours. I see the world through my particular eyes, my particular lens, and
Not I.
I'm sure you probably can't relate to this. Probably most people
Not at
here
all.
can't. Probably most people here can't relate to this. I'm sharing. This is where I'm coming from. Trapped in the prison of self, and the practice, whether it's meditation, chant, spiritual practice in general, is helps me widen the lens, be more spacious, and in fact see that bonding, that I am bonded, which is just one way of expressing it, or that I am inextricably connected to something larger than myself. Okay, so there's that. And so practicing Gevura Shabbat Yesod, constraint it's like noticing that happening in real time, moment by moment, say, oh, caught up in your own story again, caught up in your own self. take a moment as you breathe to experience the fact that your individual self is contained within, let's say, as it has been put, the larger self of the universe, right? So first of all, is that a reasonable facsimile of what you were going for?
I think so. I love your extension of greater macro bonding with all life. That wasn't conscious in my mind when I was thinking about this, but I accept it, and I think that's actually beautifully big, or bigly beautiful. I think it's hard to reify that, but I like the idea of using our moments of hopefully at least miniature transcendence to feel bonded not just to the partners and people in our lives, but humanity. And I do think that the closing blessing that we said, that again, that I borrowed from teachers of mine from in the Buddhist tradition, are inviting us to end our meditative practice with a reminder that we actually are interested in the wellness of everyone, and that
Right.
you can overlay yesod upon that. And I hadn't thought about that. I also, you know, I am, with no false humility, I'm not a scholar of how it came to be that some of the words in the Kabbalah and the Sfirot mean something really interestingly different than how they're used in other places in Jewish tradition. I can draw a line between the word yesod that means foundation and the word yesod that means bonding that I draw, which I do not know is whether or not it's the line, is that the bonds that matter are the ones that really create the foundation of our experience. And the temporary, powerful urges that we want to satisfy ultimately could lead to a diminution of the foundations of our lives. Now, graphing that onto a theology is also complicated because, as you know, and anyone who has dipped a little bit into the Kabbalah knows, it's really hard to figure out, even on a basic level, what it is they were getting at, right? But that if it's the case that part of the reason that we are alive, or part of what we want to do with our minutes and years in life, is to feel a certain bond with the Holy One and to experience the Holy One's bonding with the world, then that can be something foundational in our lives. That can be a yesod for existence. And if we don't do it, we might find that our foundations are shaky. So that's my initial response to what you offered.
Now you offered I think I missed it because I was so taken by this idea of catching myself with Gavura when I slip into the Mark Margolius is the center of the universe mode, as I said, the usual mode. There was another offering though there was an alternative I think that you offered. Am I right? Something else, another way of thinking about it.
Within the meditation?
Yeah.
Well, I was saying that there were two possible presentations for how this could be actualized in life. One is the relationships that you have that would benefit from a little less of you, and when I prepare a meditation, I don't know where my mind is going to go while I'm meditating. So my mind went in a very formative and important place. So I felt it was productive. Or the other things in your life that need less of you, so that your relationships can be stronger, so that there can be there, either with above to the transcendent, or I'm a rabbi, I'm a practicing rabbi, I'm a traditional rabbi, an observant rabbi, and there is so much work I need to do every single day to control, to apply gvura to the parts of me that want to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G with my time, which take me away from some of my religious aspirations in building a yesod with the Holy One. And so that's not that my relationship with God needs less of me, but my relationship with other things need less of me, so I can experience that more intimately with God. And it's really hard. Netflix makes that really hard.
Netflix makes a lot of things hard. Yeah. You know what? In the chat, I'm noticing some stuff in the chat, which is relating to what I was going to ask you about the closing blessing, and you alluded to this, and we're going to have, all the time. We only have a few minutes to deal with it, but if you don't mind bringing back up the blessing.
Sure.
maybe if you can make it a little larger. That last paragraph, which you were kind of, you prefaced it by pointing to that. Thanks, great. Maybe we live in great equanimity, and then this is the part, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others. Free from burdening attachment to loved ones. Okay, so the meditation was, as I understand it, helping us, come into an experience of our attachment, our bonding to loved ones, right? But not in a way that is burdensome. And I see in the chat, some people are saying, they struggle with that, where, and particularly the codependent among us, who, for example, derive a lot of our sense of self, right, from being of use to others, or helping others, or assisting others, or saving, God forbid, saving others. That it's a challenging area, let's put it that way. So how do you understand that? Free from burdening attachment. Like, what happens when we notice that attachment, we experience that as a burden?
Yeah. First of all, I struggled with this too when I first came across it. This came from a teacher of mine in a meditation retreat I did in a very special place on the planet called the Holy Isle, which is a tiny little island off of the southwest corner of Scotland. It's an island that's owned by a Tibetan Buddhist order, and they have a meditation retreat center, very Spartan, austere, and beautiful meditation retreat center in the northern part of the island. And I spent a week there, and one of my teachers, her approach to meditation is inspired from the Buddhist tradition, not really Buddhism as a religion for her, but Buddhism as a philosophy. And even as a traditional rabbi, I feel very comfortable adapting some of those wisdoms to our tradition. In Buddhism and in other traditions as well, there's a sense that an enormous amount, if not all, of suffering and pain comes from want and from lack. And that if you don't want, then you won't suffer on some basic level, right? Even if someone said, well, what about if you're in pain, you're suffering? Well, I know it's going to sound crazy. Well, if you don't want not to be in pain, then there is less suffering of the physical experience of pain. Now, that will take a year to unpack, but that is a core idea in a book. So if you want something specific and regular from, let's call it a romantic or marital relationship, on some level, like in our society, that's why you get married, right? You want to get married, you want to share a life because you want a lot of your needs to be met. But the more you want from that bond, which is what our society pushes you to like healthily desire, more you're going to suffer from not getting it. And then it becomes not an attachment, but a burdening attachment, burdening to you and to them, right? In another direction, pastors and all caregivers, can fall into the trap of countertransference, where the other one in the bond needs you a lot, and you realize how much you need to be needed. In the moment, it feels great. In the balance, it's not particularly healthy because you've turned the relationship into something that is almost always going to lead to a certain disappointment, and it becomes not an attachment, but a burdening attachment. Now, it's an art form that I am far away from mastering how to do this well, but I love the regular reminder that there are aspects of our modern Western American society that have laid out attachment in such a way that almost leads us ineluctably towards disappointment because they become too burdening. And there may be a way of thinking about it differently.
I think that's really helpful. I want to lift up, Cheryl's suggestion or practice in the chat. Cheryl wrote, it's helped me to exploring what I need in terms of, being a recipient, I guess, of attachment by articulating it as a request and what I can give by way of expressing attachment, I guess, as an offering, which helped me invite conversation while truthful, vulnerable, and tender, which I think it's like, I understand those as kind of, Cheryl, as kind of a expression of humility, right? Which maybe you can take the share down, Adam, for now. Thanks. humility, which softens the ego, the self, and so one way of that's like a proactive way of doing it. And Adam, I'm taking like just noticing and being more aware, conscious of the sense of when we are feeling burdened, and it gives us an opportunity to apply practice to that, say, in the way that I think you just described. So, all right, we're at time. I want to, speaking of Gevura, since it is Gevura Day of the week, let's respect our boundaries. And thank you, Adam, so much as always for leading us beautifully. And I wanted to ask you about the Nigun again, but another time. And thank everyone, of course, for being here. We hope to see you tomorrow to practice with Rabbi Shefa Gold. Very excited to welcome Shefa back to the teacher seat tomorrow to sit in Shabbat together. Wish you, Adam, Shabbat Shalom, and anyone we won't see tomorrow, and early Shabbat Shalom. And thanks so much, Rachel, for holding our space. And we hope to see you all tomorrow. Many blessings, everyone. Be safe and well.
Before you close, I can just put a
Yeah.
link to Klimavitch or Nigun
Oh,
in.
great.
So people who want to catch it before they leave out, there's the link. It's in the chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much.